with Jupiter synastry house overlays. Of course, we all know that Venus and Mars are really fun. They're exciting to see romantically or sort of sexually how you'll affect your partner, you know. And it's fun to see where your sun falls because that's just you as a person, how your partner sort of, the part of their life that you light up, right? And your moon, same thing. Okay, Jupiter, I feel like once we start moving on out, you know, Jupiter on out, Jupiter, Saturn, and of course all the outer planets, it's kind of like we, other than Pluto maybe, they don't seem very romantic, right? Now, Jupiter is very important. In a long-term relationship, are things always running smoothly? No, of course not. There are times when we need our partner to be our fan, to be our biggest supporter, to be our teacher, our mentor, our guide. That's what Jupiter is. So your Jupiter, wherever it falls in your partner's chart, that's the area of their life where you're going to naturally bring an optimism. You'll bring your personal resources or talents or gifts to that area of their life. You'll bring laughter. You know, you'll bring a sense of forgiveness and compassion and a bit of allowing this other person just to some latitude to sort of make mistakes, be themselves, you know, etc. So it's actually quite a spiritual planet. I think of it as an idealistic, sort of an idealistic planet. So wherever it falls, you're going to have a sort of idealism that you will paint your partner with, or at least they will feel that that part of their life is uplifted by you. Now, on the shadow side, if that Jupiter is making harsh aspects, especially to the luminaries like the sun, the moon, rising sign, or the personal planets, Mercury, you know, Venus, Mars, there can be issues of over, and then fill in the verb. Okay, so overdoing it, over exaggerating, like to Mars. Jupiter square sun or Jupiter square moon is just sort of like you believe in your partner so much, like, or rather, let's say you're the Jupiter person, let's say to your partner's sun or your partner's moon, there can be to the sun, it can be just really believing in someone to the point that you're not grounding that in reality. It's like you're hoping the best for them, but you might not be looking at the picture very clearly. And to the moon, it can be exaggerated emotion, or it can be a lot of emotion. You've really got to look at the obviously the zodiac signs that the planets are in to get a better idea of the picture, and the houses, of course. So we'll do the houses in a moment. If it's to their Mercury, it can be over-promising and under-delivering, or it can just be too much talking. And again, you've got to look at the individual people, how they're built, what they need to feel comfortable. If it's to Venus, it can be overindulgence, like hedonistic overindulgence. If it's to Mars, it can be aggression, too much aggression, or, you know, an abundance of aggression. So if you've got someone who's very placid, let's say you've got someone who's got a ton of Taurus in their chart and some Pisces, you know, a harmony loving person, and then you've got the partner who's squaring their Mars, depending on the Mars placement, could be a good thing. It could light a fire under their ass, you know, which could be good, but it could also be aggravating to that person who requires harmony. So you've got to, again, look at the whole chart to get a feel before. That's why you got to look at the birth charts individually before you put them together. But overall, I want you to consider Jupiter. It's a very important planet and house overlays. So we'll go through the houses now. Jupiter in the first house. So if your Jupiter falls into your partner's first house, this is how you will affect your partner. Jupiter, remember, it is this benefic, I believe in you sort of planet. So if it falls in the first house, and particularly the closer your Jupiter is to your partner's ascendant, the more you're going to sort of see this person, not necessarily put them on a pedestal, but you will sort of see them with a nice positive glow, okay? You may feel a desire to give them advice, to help coach them, to guide them personally. You may be someone who is a benefactor to this individual, and you've got to be careful that they don't take advantage of your giving, sort of that element in your relationship of you giving to them, believing in them. And on the shadow side, you know, again, you got to be careful also with not being, you know, basing that belief in something other than reality, okay? Because then you have issues pop up with risk taking that maybe shouldn't be taken. You have, you might believe in someone so much so that you're like, yeah, go start that new business. And the person doesn't have the resources, ability, you know, etc., etc., etc. So you can encourage someone. Encouraging someone is good as long as it's grounded and founded in some good, healthy Saturnian, some based in some factual information. So you have to be careful, but it is one where if you are the house person, this Jupiter person does make you feel really wonderful. You feel like you are seen in the best light, and that they believe in you. Okay, if your Jupiter falls into your partner's second house, this is the house of possessions, of course. This means you have the ability to either help improve your partner's financial situation through directly introducing more money into their life, or helping them with their own sort of sense of self-worth. Maybe you've got a partner who owns their own business, but they don't charge enough money for their services. So your influence on their self-worth helps them realize, oh, I should charge more for my services, So you directly impact their financial situation. But remember, this just because it's the house of possessions does not mean it has to be, wealth. It could be also actual possessions. Maybe you're a collector and you get together with someone who is someone who's very Spartan in the way that they decorate their home, and you literally bring more possessions into their life, that kind of thing. So second house, remember, you've got to look at the placements. Also look at the contacts that are being made to that Jupiter, just to get a little bit more of a picture about what it is that you're bringing to sort of increase their personal sense of self-worth or their personal wealth. Also, you've got to look at your Jupiter in your birth chart. If your Jupiter is poorly aspected, or if it's afflicted in your birth chart, okay, meaning it's taking squares, if it's got, look at where Saturn is at, look at if it's, let's say you've got, for example, in my chart, I have Jupiter square Sun, okay, it's like an exact square. And it actually makes a T-square with my moon, which is opposite my sun, so it's just lovely. But for me, that plays out in such a way, like I am very confident. It gives me sometimes overconfidence. Like I'm like, oh, I can do that. I can handle that. I don't need to prepare. I'll be just fine. And then I'll show up and I'm like, oh, shoot, I should have prepared. Okay, so you need to look at how this person's, or rather how your Jupiter is aspected in your chart. Then you can see how it is you're going to support and encourage your partner. So if you have, again, a Jupiter that's poorly aspected, if you're really overly optimistic, when that falls into someone's house of money, you could encourage them to take risks that perhaps they shouldn't take. And then of course, look at also your Jupiter relative to their planets, and also the ruler of their second house. Look at, does your Jupiter make aspects to the ruler of the second house? That's important. That will tell you, depending on what the ruler is, the nature of the expansion and what you bring to this second house part of their life. If your Jupiter falls into your partner's third house, the third house is the house of communication. It's the mind. It's our Gemini house. Okay, Jupiter in the third house is going to expand the desire. You're going to have a desire to communicate, to sit and have conversation with your partner. You got to be careful that you don't impose yourself, or rather just that you don't impose yourself upon your partner. When it comes to conversation, it's going to be something you enjoy. Make sure they're enjoying it as well. Again, look at the aspects that are happening in your chart with your Jupiter and your Mercury, and look at the ruler of their third house and see what's happening. Is your Jupiter making any aspects to that ruler, your partner's ruler of their third house, and what do those aspects look like? Are they trines? Are they conjunctions? Are they, these easier, maybe sextiles, little easy flows of energy, or are they squares? Is Pluto involved? Do you guys have power struggles over who's the dominant communicator? What about Saturn? Is Saturn in there? Are there restrictions about how you feel like you can communicate in this relationship? This is all, Jupiter is expanding the communication that's going to be happening between you. What that expanded communication looks like, you have to look at the other planets to actually sort of figure out the flavor, or the color, or the tone of the conversation between the two of you. On the shadow side, or the low side, low functioning, Jupiter in the third house can be the person who's the Jupiter, so this would be you. It can be one where you try to monopolize the partner relative to communication, or it can be one where, it can be over-exaggeration, or it can be like being overly optimistic, over-promising. It comes from a place of really believing what you're saying. It's not coming from a malefic place. It's you believe what you're saying, but it's just sometimes not grounded in reality. So just be sure to temper that a little bit. But Enjoy conversation. For sure, going to be many words of affirmation will be coming from you to your partner. So that's can be lovely, especially if you've got someone who they speak that love language. Okay. Also, with your Jupiter in the third, in your partner's third house, the desire to share things you've learned with this partner that will be helpful. So this is also sort of a placement for giving advice, or, oh, I just read this great article, or I just took this amazing class. I want to share this with you. That will be something that is sort of dominant in your relationship, or a positive part of the relationship. The partner will feel like you are sort of a teacher to them, a guide. So that's very helpful in long-term relationships, as long as they're open to the teaching. Make sure it is that you're not imposing upon them your philosophies or your ideologies. Rather, keep it sort of an open dialogue, and that should keep this Jupiter placement nice and happy and healthy. If your Jupiter falls into your partner's fourth house, this is the house of home. It's our Cancer house, home and family. Your Jupiter falls here, this is a very instinctive house. It's the house where we want to feel safe. So Jupiter here is wonderful. You would be helping the partner feel like they are at home, at ease in their own skin. It also gives them sort of a safety or a space in which to be in an emotional place, So those times in life and in relationships where you feel very vulnerable, Jupiter here helps the partner feel like they're safe. They're not going to be hurt. Okay. Now it is an emotional house in general. So you put Jupiter there. It is going to expand your partner's emotional reactions to things. And because it's sort of an unconscious house, it's instinctive. They may not always know why they're responding the way that they're responding. Then quite literally in their house itself, you very well may be someone who actually helps them at their home, whether it's helping them with cleaning or helping them with, I can see that you need some help with keeping up with your lawn care, and then going and hiring a lawn service. It's like actually helping them, again, literally in the real world. Or it could be giving, let's say you're someone who's got handy skills. It's that kind of thing. Maybe you step into their life and you're able to help them with their home environment, organizing their closets or hanging up pictures, or just, helping to remove things that are obstacles for your partner, and helping to improve the general feeling of well-being in their home. Including Jupiter in the fourth house, there's a good possibility if your partner owns a home, that your just relationship with your partner could help them improve the actual home itself, like home improvements, increase the value of the home. This is a great interaspect between like a builder and their client. If you were the client or the homeowner, if you're the Jupiter and your client was the homeowner, that would be a nice benefic relationship, because you would be, literally expanding their home, building a home for them. Okay, so take that, literal concrete example and apply it metaphorically on the inner world, their inner home, their inner sense of safety. You'd be doing the same. You'd be helping them fortify those walls, growing their heart, improving the general environment inside of themselves emotionally, helping them feel like they're safe. The walls aren't going to come crashing down, that kind of thing. Again, Jupiter, I always think of kind of laughter with Jupiter. There's this optimism and expansiveness to Jupiter. So you would bring that to your partner's inner world, which is very lovely and very nice for long-term companionship with someone, especially if you're going to live in the same home together. Jupiter in the fifth house. Fifth house is our Leo house. This is the house that has to do with creativity, including our love lives and including our creation of children. And it's also self-expression. So if your Jupiter falls into your partner's fifth house, you will increase and bring benefit to all of these areas. As far as just their creativity, there is this expansion of, or you give the person room, or you give them encouragement to create or to self-express if it's someone who has a hard time expressing how it is they feel or asking for what they want. Jupiter here will give them sort of an extra bolstered bit of support where they feel like it's okay for them to go ahead and to voice their needs. As far as children go, Jupiter in the fifth house is like more of. So there you go. It's having children. It brings fertility. As long as other things in the individual birth charts support fertility, there's a suggestion that you would increase each other's And if not actual children, and if you have children, it's also an increased relationship of happiness, and it just is, perhaps your Jupiter falls in your partner's house and your partner has children, and you're able to give your partner some really great advice or just a listening ear when it comes to talking about parenting issues, okay? So there's this sort of, let's say your partner had a particularly bad day with their kids and is really frustrated, you would be able to sit and listen to them, perhaps offer a funny joke, a little anecdote, just a pat on the back, a hug, like, it's okay, this too shall pass, kind of a thing, and tell them that and you would be telling them they're doing a great job. And so your partner would then feel obviously supported. They'd feel like, okay, I got this, So you're encouraging, enhancing their ability to self-express, yes, but also with their expression, their creation of their children themselves, to parent these children. Because parenting is about, making rules and enforcing your will on someone else to help them grow. Okay. Relative to your love life, Jupiter here expands. It brings to the love life a sense of goodwill. Everything else being equal. If we're just looking at Jupiter in the fifth house, to me, it's like not a relationship where that person would necessarily want to hurt you, and just, it could be a one-night stand relationship, but it wouldn't feel like this was a nefarious act, it wouldn't feel like this person's trying to cheat me or use me, okay? It's like, even if it was a one-time thing, it would feel like there was a connection that had been made between the two people, all right? Now, if you're in a long-term relationship, this just brings a very fun, again, like sense of lovemaking that is just easy. There's a lightness to it. There's a enjoying it to enjoy it. And so it's a nice benefit. Wherever Jupiter falls, it's good. And fifth house is a great place to have it. It's more fifth house stuff. It's fun, it's play. I forgot to mention that. Fifth house is our house of play. So it is more play, it's more laughter, games. It can also be a house that has a little bit to do with risk-taking, a bit like our ninth house, So Jupiter, and you put Jupiter in the house of Leo, and you're like, this is the sun and Jupiter. It's just kind of like, let's go for it. It's very optimistic, very sunny placement. Okay, so you bring that you enhance sort of the sunshine in this person's life. Again, look at the ruler of the house. Okay, look at also where their sun falls. It's the natural ruler of the fifth house, but to get kind of a feel for how this all plays out. Okay. Jupiter in the sixth house. All right, sixth house, poor little sixth house. It's kind of like our practical, it's our chores and our homework. It's our day-to-day, getting things done house. But it's the Virgo house. So this is a house of service. I like to think of this actually as the house of the earth angel. That's what I always call it. This is the earth angel. Think of the 12th house as sort of just the house of the angel, if you're looking at them from a very, high functioning perspective. Sixth house, if your Jupiter falls in your partner's sixth house, you would have an ability to help them with the practical matters in their life. Whether you know how to do something they don't know how to do and you're able to teach them how to do it, whether you're able to sort of show up for this person and serve them. They need their garage cleaned out. Maybe you have a girlfriend and she's super busy and she's just got a new job and she has kids and she's a single parent and her garage is a mess, and you just go clean it for her, okay? And give her more space in her garage. You've actually expanded it. But through your know-how, you're like, how to organize all of her shelves and her tools, and you label everything for her, okay? That's an example of Jupiter in the sixth house. Think of anything that has to do with Virgo also as far as the mind, because Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So this is organizing, this is categorizing, it's actually, even to me, Virgo is very much about, like I've said before, taking a mess, something that's really messy, and untangling the mess and making it organized. And then sort of someone else does things with the parts. Okay, it's more about just kind of categorizing it all. So if you can think in your partner's life, a lot of times I will see this in relationships where it's like a rescuee kind of a thing. Okay, sixth house, 12th house, anytime you've got aspects that are happening with these two houses, there can be elements of one person rescuing the other one, especially if you have it repeated if it's in your birth chart. If you have the strong 6th and 12th house in your birth chart, then you probably have themes of either there's this element of you being attracted to someone who is a project, who needs some assistance and some help. So the one caveat I would say, if you have Saturn, many times if you have Saturn in the 12th house or the 6th house, that doesn't, it seems like that sort of tempers that desire to enter into a relationship where your partner is a project that you're trying to fix. It's like you kind of, that it tempers it a bit. So, but Jupiter in the 6th house, overall, your partner, you will enjoy serving them or helping them. And in fact, that will be very much the role, the part of you that's the teacher, the guide, the encourager, that's going to be in these very practical day-to-day matters, okay? Helping this person just with their everyday chores, the everyday sort of, oh, and it can also be fitness. This is exercise, this is health. So maybe you have a partner where you help them with their meals, or I mentioned this on other videos, but maybe you help perform some sort of act of service for them. Perhaps your partner has an injury or a disease of some kind, and you help them with their daily tasks that they can't help themselves with, Perhaps on the less lower functioning side, you step into a sort of a codependent role where you are the codependent to your partner. So of course, that's a less healthy version of the 6th house. It comes from many times, I think it comes from a good place. I think anyone who's willing to really love and care for someone else, that they're not a bad person. It's just they're trying to control that other person's behavior so that they feel like they're needed, so they feel safe. So you just have to be careful that you're not stepping into that role. Okay, so good, clear boundaries. All right, if your Jupiter falls in your partner's 7th house. 7th house, this is our house of relationships. So you put Jupiter here, you actually see this a lot in married couples. It would be actually very beneficial to a married couple. Your Jupiter would enhance your partner's desire for harmony, your partner's desire to cooperate. Also, there's this interest because, 7th house is opposite the 1st house, which is the individual. 7th house is the partner, but it's also sort of how we are seen out in the world. It's different than the 10th house, but there's something about the reputation, okay? So having an interest in the partner's reputation, almost as though like you are, so my job as an astrologer, 7th house, when I sit down and talk with someone one-on-one, there's very much a 7th house relationship happening there, okay? So imagine that in a romantic relationship, you would be someone who would encourage your partner's aspirations relative to sort of their appearance out in the world, okay? So with their job, there'd be this, you would be interested in helping them to be seen in a nice, positive light. All right. Now, if the Jupiter in either birth chart or the Jupiter in, your Jupiter if it's making any kind of bad aspects, that was really not my best use of the English language, but you know what I'm trying to say. If it's making any aspects that are any squares or quincunxes or things like that to luminaries or personal planets, there can be an overestimation. You may overestimate your partner's ability to be perceived in the light that you see them in. You really may see them in a way that other people just don't, which is great for the partnership because, to me, it's Jupiter. It's not like it dissolves and goes away like Neptune can. It's just, it's like Marge Simpson and Homer Simpson. Marge just believes in Homie. She just loves him, thinks he's great, even though he's a mess. That's like Jupiter in the 7th house, okay? So you make your partner feel loved. You make your partner bring out their desire, again, to harmonize, to couple with you, to be with you. It's a very pleasant, this is great. This would be great with best friends too. Just this, like we have fun together. We enjoy each other. Your partner would just think, gosh, she always lifts me up. She always helps me feel better than I was, when I wake up in the morning and I see her, I feel happy. I feel, this coupling and this partnership makes me feel expanded and makes me feel bigger and larger than life. And you can say the same for the 1st house as well. There's this sense of enlargement of your own identity. And in the 1st house, it's more the individual person's identity. In the 7th house, it's more like their identity in that role of partner. Somebody who maybe felt like they could do partnership before, when all of a sudden someone has their Jupiter fall into their 7th house, they might start to feel like, oh, maybe I can do partnership. Maybe I am good at this. Jupiter in the 8th house. All right, this is our Scorpio house. Now, as we move, when you are looking at the horoscope and you've got your 7th house, once we move into the 7th house and all the way over to the 12th, we are working with these houses that start to sort of cover more ground, okay? So the 8th house covers, of course, sexuality, covers death, it covers taboo. And because it covers sexuality and death, these two things to me are very much intrinsically linked to one another. They are parallels of one another. Eighth house sexuality has to do with sacred and the profane. This has to do with the bond you have with someone that no one else is allowed to enter into. Okay, so that's why it's also like our house of shared joint resources or loans or, these types of things, because it's like you've made a contract with this person. Okay, there's this element of obligation. And I always say with Scorpio, if you have a group of items, Scorpio is separating out one of those items and focusing just on that one item. And that's what eighth house relating looks like. You put Jupiter, if your Jupiter falls into your partner's eighth house, they're going to expose things inside of them relative to these sort of scary, intense topics of life and death, okay? When you have decided this one person is the person I want to be with, that means you've eliminated all other choices. That means you are now, you've taken that leap, okay? That's a scary place to be. It's a place of vulnerability. So Jupiter in the eighth house will naturally enhance someone's sense of feeling vulnerable. And with that can come intense emotions like obsession or compulsion, jealousy, being paranoid to a certain extent. That's on the shadow side. And many times these will come out no matter what. It will sort of display as this intense feeling for your partner's going to have intense feelings towards you, okay? But many times also what happens is, because it's Jupiter, it enhances and it brings these things out, but it's as though there's a certain sense of safety with bringing them out, unless that Jupiter is poorly aspected. Also, if you've got planets involved that have to do with the moon or the fourth house or any Plutonian type of things, then it can get a little bit more intense and crazy, like emotionally, can make the house person feel a little exposed, okay? And so then they might respond in very instinctive ways that are kind of weird and not their typical way of responding. Also, eighth house is our house of sexuality. So you put Jupiter there. This does increase the physical chemistry. You will bring out in your partner, they'll be physically attracted to you. And it's more of a visceral attraction, okay? So there's that. That's always helpful. But with that comes many times a desire to almost possess you in a way, or a desire to just be with you. So if you want that, that's great. If you don't want that, then that can be a little tricky, because the eighth house person, even if it's someone who normally is very freedom loving, they'll be confused by the way they feel towards you as well. So it can be a little tricky. This is also our house of transformation. So you, as the Jupiter person, are going to bring out a desire in your partner to transform. And it's almost unconscious. It's maybe not even a desire, is not the right word, I guess. It is just, you will bring about circumstances will sort of come about in the interplay between the two of you, whether they're through sort of power games or manipulation of some kind. That can happen, especially with a poorly afflicted or poorly aspected Jupiter. But again, because Jupiter is ultimately this benefic planet, it does bring opportunity for growth and expansion and awareness in this area of these really intense topics of sexuality and bonding and those intimate sacred relationships. On a side note, the eighth house is a financial house as well. It's a house of group, shared resources. Rules things like child support or, money accounts you own together when you're married. Jupiter here says there's an increase in those shared joint resources, okay? There's a benefit brought to both parties. You've got to be careful that the Jupiter person, this would be you, so you're not going to marry someone for their money. But if you're a house person and someone's Jupiter falls into your eighth house, there are times where financial motivators could be the reason why the relationship was sort of cemented. They can be. That's if it's poorly afflicted. So look at everything. Overall, though, I like it. I have my moon in the eighth house, so I always like eighth house. That's why I talk so long about eighth house things. Jupiter in the ninth house. Ninth house is the Sagittarius house, so Jupiter is very happy here. Jupiter is, of course, the teacher, the guru, the guide. You put it in the house of philosophy, religion, and you've immediately created a situation where you as the Jupiter person are helping to expand your partner's views, their ideologies. What do they believe about the meaning of life? Sort of those big existential questions. You will bring something to the table that increases their desire to sort of grow in personal wisdom. Now, this can include everything from actually going back to school, okay, getting higher education or schooling of some kind, to even just you sitting and having conversations that are philosophical conversations or sort of deep conversations about spirituality, about those questions of meaning, to also traveling, getting out into the world together. You may bring out a desire in this person to go see what there is to see, to go learn more about the wisdom of other cultures, not just the wisdom that your partner grew up with. And you could actually bring religion into their life. You could be someone who brings faith of some kind into this person's life. You could bring perhaps a change in faith in their life. Again, we always look at the house ruler of your partner and look at where that falls. It's very important. That cusp ruler is really important, and look and see if there are aspects being made to your Jupiter. That will show you again how you affect this ninth house. A very lovely aspect that can happen, or rather, something that's quite lovely that can happen when your Jupiter falls into your partner's ninth house is there's this ability with Jupiter, because it's like this sky god, there's this ability to see your partner on a very spiritual level, and to be able to see sort of where they're going with their life, to see their gifts, their talents, but on more of a bigger picture level, okay? Like you're up in the sky looking down on them and their life, and you're seeing, oh, okay, well, they're doing this with their life right now, but I know that that's not really what they want to be doing, and that's not, whether it's a career or their schooling, maybe their degree, it's not what they really are wanting to do. It's not lining up with their inner value system. You, as the Jupiter, have the ability to step in and say, hey, I see you're doing this thing, but I wonder how it would be if you did this other thing. I see you're majoring in botany, but I wonder how you would feel if instead you majored in biochemistry, because of those conversations we've had this past few weeks, or those books you've been reading, or do you see there's this ability to sort of see inside your partner in a way that they will appreciate, and they will feel seen. They will feel like their inner beliefs, their inner values are understood by you and supported and enhanced by your relationship with one another. Ninth house, also, one of the things I didn't mention is that it rules publishing. It rules, so this can be a very simple, you could be a publisher and an author. So as if you're a publisher, or you're someone, if you and your partner work together writing, if you're writers, or one of you's a speaker, one of you writes the person's speech, that kind of thing. I mean, you got to use your imagination here, but anything that has to do with publishing words and ideas and spreading the collective body of wisdom, that's the ninth house. So this could be something where in a business setting, business context, if you see Jupiter in the ninth house, that's like writing and books and again, sharing ideas that's enhanced in this relationship. If your Jupiter falls in your partner's 10th house, 10th house is the Capricorn house. We associate it with status, with how we're seen in the world, our accomplishments, our achievements. So if your Jupiter falls there, many times you will expand your partner's belief in themselves as relative to achievement, or you could actually be sort of the impetus that pushes them out to try new things, to go for the job, go for the promotion that they didn't think they could go for. You could just simply bring status to their life. You may be somebody who's important, or someone they see as important, somebody that they feel proud to be seen with. You could be someone that you may have even met each other through work. Your Jupiter in your partner's 10th house can also increase your partner's desire for success. You could bring an increased encouragement of your partner's ambitions. If your partner, I actually had this with a long-term boyfriend, and it was one where I very much believed in him. He was always sort of trying new things, but I always believed in what it was he was going for, and I supported him wholeheartedly and could see the vision behind what it was he was trying to accomplish. So it's really helpful in work situations, and it can be something you may even have met your partner through work. This is something you could see in a boss sort of assistant, or it's more of like a mentor-mentee kind of a setup, relative mentor-mentee thing that's done through work. Of course, on the low functioning side with Jupiter in the 10th house, you can have issues of, again, overbelief in someone, or pushing them before they're ready to be pushed, or even making things too easy for the partner when it comes to work, career decisions, status out in the world. It could be a great, just like the 7th house, this is a nice place for sort of social lubricant, or making someone appear to be more accomplished than they are. Can be a little bit of a trophy thing happening here. You could be you would be, as the Jupiter person, sort of a little bit, could be a little bit like the trophy to that 10th house person. You're enhancing the way that they look. You're enhancing their status, out in the world. I would be surprised if you saw this in relationships where it was like the trophy wife. Those trophy wives also many times have very strong 10th houses. They're very interested. They themselves, their 10th houses are strong, and then their Jupiter's falling into their husband's 10th house. That would not be shocking, or Venus, that kind of thing. Okay, on to the 11th. If your Jupiter falls in your partner's 11th house, this is the Aquarius house, the house of friendship, the house of aspirations, the house of hopes and dreams. When I think of the 11th house, I think more, it's also like our house of astrology, the new age. I don't consider astrology new age because astrology's been around for thousands of years, so it's hardly new. But there is a cosmic kind of element to the 11th house. And because it is our platonic house of friendship and our house of associations, there is this element of, if your Jupiter falls in your partner's 11th house, there is this friendship that exists there. There is a sense that you're a benefactor, you're a friend. And in friendship, that's when you've got two people, they come together and neither person really gets anything from the other person, right? It's not like there are no underlying hidden motivators. You're not getting sex from each other, you're not getting money from each other, or whatever, people, or power, or it's just you enjoy being with each other. This 11th house, Aquarius, it's an Aquarius, it's an air sign house. So communication, conversation, sharing ideals, belonging to an association together. Maybe you should be part of a meetup group together. There's an element of socializing and not just keeping the two of you insular. I mean, of course, you've got to look at the rest of the chart. If you have a composite chart with a really strong 12th house, then that's a couple that does need a lot of time, where it's the two of them, more private, or like a Cancer or Piscean, Okay. But let's say you don't have those things. Even if you do have them, there still is this element of the couple needing to be exercising and expressing their relationship and their chemistry out in amongst the collective. So whether this is like an association or just socializing with friends, going out on the weekends together, getting out of the house, your Jupiter falling into that 11th house is going to enhance your partner's desire for these types of sort of extroverted activities. It's also, 11th house is also the house of science, and in particular sort of fringe science, those things that have to do with the cosmos, those things that have to do with the things we don't fully understand yet. So before we understood what a photon was, that's like an 11th house thing, It's those things that are sort of, they could seem mystical, but that's only because we don't understand them on an empirical level yet, okay? That's 11th house stuff. So if you are a couple where if you have a partner who has a really strong skeptical scientific mind and your Jupiter falls into this 11th house, you could have some really interesting discussions with them about these topics, about science and about meaning of the universe, because you're bringing that Jupiter has a lot to do with Sagittarius. Of course, rules Sagittarius. It's also traditionally rules Pisces, and these both have to do with meaning, deeper meaning behind the structure and the mechanisms that move everything around here in our reality. So you would bring that out in your partner, and this is also a house that has to do with psychedelic drugs, and it's a little bit also Neptunian and Piscean, but it's these sort of experiences. It's more from the side of like the perspective, the cosmic astral travel perspective. Okay, so opening up each other's minds a bit you would open up your partner's mind a bit to sort of the eccentric fringe ways of approaching reality, approaching the explanation to the framework behind what this thing we call reality. And ultimately, that's like what we do with friends. With a friend, you can talk openly about these weird thoughts that you have, and your friend's like, oh, yeah, that's kind of cool. I never thought about that before. And well, what about this? Okay, finally, if your Jupiter falls into your partner's 12th house. Now, 12th house is our poor little house that's been, our Pisces house. And I don't know why it's been so maligned. I do know why. But this house is not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you're someone who believes in being aware of yourself and your psyche as best you can. And, this is the house of our unconscious. This is the house that rules addictions. This is the house that rules prisons, imprisonment. To me, it's the house that's the house of the formless. It's anything that removes you from the world of form, the world of reality, right? And takes you into that netherworld that is formless, that doesn't have explanation. That's why I was saying earlier, the psychedelic drugs or marijuana, these things are very 12th house. So is alcohol, because they're scooting you into the unconscious slightly, if not, all the way to a certain extent. Of course, you can go all the way down the rabbit hole if you want. But so anyway, I do think of the 12th house as the rabbit hole. Jupiter is a teacher. Jupiter teaches us through expansive experiences, through growth. If your Jupiter falls into your partner's 12th house, there's a very good chance that your partner feels like the 8th house, a bit exposed, that your partner could feel seen in ways that do not feel comfortable, okay? Especially if you figure out the ruler of their 12th house. Is it making aspects to Saturn? Is it, because that tells you that they have a restriction in this area, okay? That tells you that this is a block and it's something for them that's, they have fear about what's hiding in there, what monsters are inside, what demons, what happens if we look at them and we unleash the Kraken, and then what, So you've got to be delicate with this placement, and you are naturally going to enhance and bring out Jupiter in any of the water houses, 4th, 8th, or 12th. You're going to bring out these reactive, unconscious emotional responses from your partner if you're not aware of your role in their life. If you're aware of the fact that you're there to sort of be a guide to them, this is a placement for a muse, this is a placement for someone who's sort of an angel to someone else, or someone who kind of comes along. It's like you've come along in your partner's life at a certain point in time where they needed the things that you were prepared to teach them. And these things are typically not very comfortable, okay? Now, this can also, on the shadow side, mean that through your partnership, there may be elements of alcohol or drug use, okay? Your Jupiterian-ness is expanding this person's desire to step into the unconscious. If they're really asleep and not awake and aware of where they're at, it will go down the path, it could go down the path of substance abuse or addiction, or like codependent behavior. Like it could be something where you're taking care of their stuff for them and you might even, as a Jupiter person, might even be keeping them sort of in that unconscious place because, it keeps you in their life, kind of a deal. So be careful with that. Be careful with rescuing them and saving them from their own prisons. That's their job. But just be prepared it could be a very spiritual and quite a psychic connection, especially if you've got good Mercury contacts, and good Neptune Mercury contacts especially would give you a really strong psychic bond with this person. But it's also, again, you're dealing with the unconscious, which is like, it's not the conscious mind. You can't put words to it. So things will come out, the bubble to the surface in really weird ways. And then you have to figure out how to slay the dragons, and they have to slay them. And it's just, it can be a little tricky. But it's also the last house. This is a house that has to do with our most evolved sort of soulful self. And to get to that place, we have to step into the unconscious realms it's the fog. We can't see with our conscious eyes what we're looking at. It's like I write poetry. This is a house of poetry. I write poetry and I free write. I just write. Words come to me, phrases come. I just write them, and then that's my poetry. And then I'll go back and look at it later. It makes sense later, okay? That's 12th house. 12th house, you don't consciously know what you're doing. You just do it. It's very flow. So if your Jupiter falls there, you're going to bring that out in your partner. That's why I say it's an inspiring placement. It's one where you are going to be like a muse in a sense to this person, because you're helping them tap their unconscious mind. So that's powerful. That's very powerful. That's the iceberg under the surface. We see this tip of the iceberg, and you're helping them tap into who they really are on the inside, which can be very scary for some people. Okay, let me know what you think about Jupiter and Jupiter placements. And I appreciate when you tell me where your Jupiter placements fall. That's great. You can do that if you want. But I really like to hear your feedback and your insight. What about you, where your Jupiter falls in your partner's house? What additional insights have you learned? Because it's always great. I'm here just to share what I know. And of course, I'm doing these videos. I'm not thinking of all possibilities, so this is without any context. So I like to hear your thoughts. Okay, hope this is helpful for you, and have a good one. Thanks for watching, as always. See ya.